Joining me now, CNN political commentator and Democratic strategist Dave Jacobson and Republican strategist Luis Alvarado. Good to see you both joining us here in the studio.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, let's just go back into the time machine. Just a little quick reminder. It was 5:56, June 13th, a Wednesday morning, when the President of the United States shared the good news with us all. Just landed, a long trip, but everybody can now feel much safer than the day I took office. There is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. Meeting with Kim Jong-un was an interesting and very positive experience. North Korea has great potential for the future. So, Luis, it hasn't even been 3 weeks since the nuclear threat from North Korea was over, and now we're back. How did it all go so wrong? How do we go from no threat to now suddenly increased nuclear activity?
Well, I think for years we've seen North Korea is like a poker player. You know, the more chips they get, the more chips they want. And they saw that they had enough chips to bring President Trump to the table and negotiate. And they came to an agreement. As we just heard, there was no specifics to what that agreement actually entailed. So Donald Trump and North Korea could call it a success as much as they wanted to, but in reality, the professional diplomatic corps knew that there was nothing going to come out of that. At the end of the day, it was a checkbox for Donald Trump. He still claims victory. He moves on to the next challenge.
Okay, Dave, get you a moment, but I want you to listen to Sarah Sanders, the White House press secretary, responding to multiple reports that North Korea's nuclear activity has been stepped up.
We see progress and momentum in the process, and we've had good conversations as recently as yesterday.
So even though Sarah Sanders and the administration would like to pretend that there's some kind of alternative universe out there where good progress is being made with the North Koreans, that doesn't make it reality.
Right. That's a great example of alternative facts from the White House. Look, the reality is I think Donald Trump either got punked, he got schooled, or he's in total denial.
Or all
right?
three.
Or all three, right? Like, bottom line, there has been no progress made on this. Like, they are still ramping up and accelerating their nuclear program. And the challenge is they haven't given up anything. They won. They elevated themselves. They had the President of the United States sit there with this brutal, murdering dictator. And at the same time, we gave up joint exercises with our close ally, South Korea, when North Korea hasn't done anything to show that they've got skin in the game and that they're willing to move the ball forward. So I think Luis is precisely right. Like, the challenge is, going into this, Donald Trump set up these high expectations. All these diplomatic leaders said, you know what? At the end of the day, they're not going to give up their nukes, and they're not. That's the reality.
But Luis, shouldn't Sarah Sanders, you know, just sort of come forward and actually say, hey, you know, because it seems like the intelligence community is deliberately putting those reports out there to counter the narrative coming from the White House.
Well, that's the problem with this administration and their whole foreign policy strategy, is that nobody believes anything that they say until it's actually done. And basically everybody's playing catch up. And that brings a little bit of destabilization to the world, and it's very unfortunate. But somehow this is what the American people wanted. They wanted to throw a wrench into Washington, and they did, and that meant that there was also going to be some kind of fallout for the foreign policy aspect of managing this country.
Yeah, we just heard from Paula Hancock in Seoul saying one of the problems with the deal, and you guys have mentioned this as well, it was just so vague and so, you know, broadly worded that it's very difficult to know if the North Koreans are actually in breach of anything here. You know, so Dave, is it possible that, you know, the self-described world's greatest deal maker actually struck a deal with Kim Jong-un that is so vague and broad you could drive an ICBM truck through it?
Yes, I think that's plausible. I mean, look, if you go back to the reporting, the fact that you have these undisclosed intelligence officials who are leaking out this information, I think really truly illustrates the fact that these are patriots, and they're trying to send a message that speaks volumes to the American people that our president is lying to you. There is no progress being made. The threat, is still alive and well. And this is a real danger for the American people.
Okay, listen to the U.S. president speaking last month about North Korea's concessions.
They've already blown up one of their big test sites. In fact, it was actually 4 of their big test sites.
Okay, the problem, Luis, according to many experts, is that blowing up test sites is a high PR, low impact concession. In other words, it looks great, but in terms of impacting their nuclear program, it's minimal because they can simply go out there and rebuild that site quite easily. So with that in mind, does it all start to add up that the president was played?
Well, you have to also understand that there's an argument out there that they blew up the stations by mistake, and it was actually they're playing trying to get both sides of it. We're destroying the site to try to be diplomatic, but in reality, it was just an accident that they had the nuclear plant. I think the president can say that he wasn't played because his base still believes that he did the right thing and that America benefited from him going to North Korea. And from a political perspective, as long as his base is going to be there for him, you know, through high or low water, that's all he cares about. And the only thing he has in mind right now are midterm elections in November. And whatever argument fits to make sure that he can keep control of the House, that's the only thing that's going to matter to him at this point.
And I think that's a testament to why it's so critical that we have an independent, free press. I mean, if you look at the coverage of this from the weekend, it wasn't just CNN and NBC and the New York Times or Washington Post, the mainstream media. It was the Wall Street Journal, who's controlled by Rupert Murdoch, of course. So, like, bottom line is it's right-wing and mainstream press that's covering this, and I think that's only going to increase if these test sites continue to grow.
And just to that point, Luis, it seems to me that right now, if you look at the recent Supreme Court decisions, if you look at Republicans in Congress, the only institution that's left right now which is holding the administration accountable is the media.
It becomes almost a fourth house of power for the democracy here in the United States. And I, for one, have always argued that the press is one of the most important and probably the most powerful ones. And it became very powerful, and it's peaked in the 1980s and 90s. I think it's been hurt. It's been diminished because there's a segment of the population who doesn't believe anymore that the press actually stands for democracy, and that's very unfortunate.
It hasn't been helped, clearly, by what Donald Trump is saying. And just a little bit off topic, but the president apparently has refused to lower the flags in memory of the victims of the journalist shot in Maryland, which seems an odd decision to make, Dave.
It's totally disgraceful. I mean, John, you served in the Middle East during times of war, and you risked your life, I'm sure, multiple times to go out there to report the news, both to the American people, but also to the international world stage, so that people know what's happening on the ground. And reporters do that on a regular basis all over the globe. And the fact that the president doesn't stand up and doesn't raise the flag, lower the flag, pardon me, to honor the work that those individuals did is a disgrace.
Okay, we'll move over to Michael Cohen now, the former fixer, personal lawyer to Donald Trump, who is under criminal investigation, has broken his silence, kind of. He did it over the weekend. It was off camera, but he spoke to ABC's George Stephanopoulos. This is part of what he said.
My wife, my daughter, and my son have my first loyalty and always will. I put family and country first.
And then he also talked about the FBI and the Russia investigation, telling Stephanopoulos this.
He said, I don't agree with those who demonize or vilify the FBI. I respect the FBI as an institution as well as their agency.
Yeah, Lisa, I found that last one about the FBI. I respect the FBI as an institution. That kind of, I thought that was really telling. I mean, if you put it all together, do you think Cohen is about to flip?
I think he's advertising that he's for sale, that his loyalty is for sale. I think that he knows a lot more than the American people can even imagine that he actually knows. If you run in those circles and the way that business is conducted, you know, morality is not at the top of the list. When you work out of the New York, Manhattan Park Avenue area, and this, for Donald Trump to have confided in him so much, I'm sure that Donald Trump is a little bit concerned with actually information, not just about the investigation, but, you know, the plethora of other items that could come out to light under, you know, interrogation or when you're actually under oath.
Yeah, because Dave, you know, Cohen recorded telephone conversations. He dealt with Russian officials during the election campaign for Donald Trump. You know. And also, because a lot of the alleged crime which is being investigated by Cohen, the alleged crime by Cohen which is being investigated, I should say, it's state crime, which means that the president's pardon does not come into effect. The president can't pardon someone for a state crime. So Donald Trump, you know, how worried should he be at this point? Because we haven't heard from him.
This is the ultimate nightmare scenario for the president. I think Michael Cohen, I think it's clear that he is a game changer for the Mueller investigation, as is Paul Manafort if he were to flip, right? I think those are sort of the two heavyweights that Mueller's trying to apply maximum pressure with. The reality is you've got Michael Cohen, who you're right, you listed a couple of one of the things that he sort of did for the president. But I mean, like things like the National Enquirer running stories by Michael Cohen before they were published, or being the fixer, right? Giving that $130,000 to Stormy Daniels,
the
pardon me, the hush money. I mean, This guy knows where the bodies are buried. And frankly, he's probably in bed as deep with Donald Trump as the First Lady has been for the last 10 years. The reality is there's nobody else who has the mix of the Trump organization, the Trump campaign, Trump's personal life, all intertwined together and knows all of it as much as Michael Cohen.
Well, we have not heard from the president on Michael Cohen and the interview he gave to George Stephanopoulos, but on Monday they were talking about Michael Cohen on Fox News, and we know that from Fox News it's always a pretty good indication of what the president is thinking. Listen to this.
Certainly where we are right now is if he knows something that is so important and yet he's willing to kind of taunt the president by seeming to go against him, what does that say about this person as a witness? I mean, it gets difficult to even kind of see him as credible at this point. The one thing we know about Michael Cohen is that it seems like he'll throw anybody under the bus.
Hey, Luis, Cohen was a regular guest. They used to love the guy. Now he doesn't have credibility. He throws people under the bus.
Oh, are you for us or against us? And if you're against us, you're fair game. You know, the second that actually it looks like he is going to cooperate with the FBI and turn information, regardless of his associations with Donald Trump, he's going to be a #1 target. But everybody in Fox and everybody in Trump world is going to come after him. He's going to be diminished. He's going to become fake news puppet. I mean, I could just see the tweets coming from Donald Trump. It's going to be incredibly fun to watch.
Well, this is also reflective of the broader Trump strategy, right? They get Trump TV to turn on any Trump ally or affiliate. You know, Paul Manafort, oh, he wasn't really involved in the campaign. Michael Flynn, oh, you know, he only served in the White House for a couple days.
Jared Kushner just dated my daughter for a while.
Yeah, right. It's just like this is their playbook, and Michael Cohen is no different.
Right, and he didn't really say that about Jared Kushner, but I'm waiting. Luis and Dave, thank you both.
Thanks.
Thanks for the invitation.